hypothesis ମୁଁ ଟିକେ ଚାର୍ଜ ବସେ କଥା ହଉଛି ତେଣୁ ଟିକେ ଡିଫିକଲ୍ଟ ହେଇପାରେ ମୋବାଇଲଟା ତାର ବସିକି କଥା ହଉଛି ତେଣୁ ମଝିରେ ମଝିରେ ହୁଏତ ଟିକେ ଡିଫିକଲ୍ଟ ହେଇପାରେ so bear with the difficulty. So now let me tell you what is hypothesis. I told you partly yesterday. Hypothesis, I told you, it's a prediction, foretelling, or before you do something you are assuming something. This assumption is hypothesis. This assumption helps you in giving a direction to your work. Suppose you assumption nature gote je we were giving fertilizer, so the production will more. So your hypothesis is this: if we give fertilizer, there will be more production. तो देखो जोटा एठी कौन ला तुम्हारा गोटे फर्टिलाइजर देले एटा बढ़िबो प्रोडक्शन यू गिव ए डायरेक्शन निश्चय पॉजिटिव बढ़िबो तेणु जोटा हाइपोथेसिस तुम गोटे दिए डायरेक्शन दिए गोटे अच्छा or you can say this fertilizer may have some effect on production say may have रे भी गोटे डायरेक्शन either बेसी हो कौन हो so similarly in other hypotheses we find some directional value is indicated. The hypothesis is two types: null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. जोटी null hypothesis fail मारे आमे कहू एटा alternative hypothesis. null hypothesis माने कोन मु तुम काली कहितली null hypothesis माने होची मु तुम काली कहिची जे null hypothesis माने तुम्हारा zero or no effect is null. Null means zero. So here we find that null hypothesis means we are saying if you are giving this I mean if you give this manure there will be no effect. It also null hypothesis. Or if at all there is an effect, this effect is very less matter of chance. So null hypothesis says there is no effect, or if any effect, that is only by chance. By chance means now it is showing, it may not show again. किंतु जोटी null hypothesis verify हेलानी reject हे गला सेठी हमें नौ alternate hypothesis. जदि result significant न होला हमें कहिबा जे null hypothesis is rejected. तमोटे value पाइछो से value यदि significant न होला तुम्हें कहबो null hypothesis rejected. ता माने alternate hypothesis is accepted. Alternate hypothesis says that there is effect and the effect is also significant. So हमारा जोड़ी एमती hypothesis अछि तनो हमारा ए जो hypothesis formation होउची तार बहुत effect रहिछि as I told you. So now I come to sampling. आमे जो स्टडी करूछु आमे गोटे population नो गोटे part को नेकी आउछु. A representative part of population is taken as study purpose. ये जो पार्ट नौछु आमे ताको कहू सैंपल तेणु आमे केमिति सैंपलटा नबा पॉपुलेशन रु दैट इज वेरी इंपोर्टेंट. जो सैंपल आमे नौछु से सैंपल रे पॉपुलेशन के कैरेक्टरिस्टिक थिबो. फॉर एग्जांपल मु नेबी गोटे सैंपल नेबी of IGNOU first year students. There are so many students, maybe 100 students. All are not coming here. They are coming only 16 or 20 like that. So now see what sample nebi study karibi how the IGNOU people are behaving with them, how they are cooperating with them. Study karibi. This study kala bale mu samati ko depari bini mo sample nei jibi. Sample बाछी भी मु that is important. Sample हम बाछी भी केमती बाछी भी ना population में गोटे कैरेक्टरिस्टिक थिबो. Population गोटे कोन 100 जन पिला पढुछंती तांगर गोटे कैरेक्टरिस्टिक कोन they are students, they are reading. तेणु मु एमिति गोटे ग्रुप नेबी those who are reading. तेणु गोटे कॉमन रहला कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स. तेणु मु नेली 20 जन नेली 20 जन तुमे अछो एठी मु 20 जन भितरु जो नेबी कारण तांगर कॉमन कैरेक्टरिस्टिक हला गोटे कोन all are reading. मु समति नै परिबिनी very difficult. मुद्रु 4 जन नेबी जोड़िए झियो जोड़िए पुओ नेबी तो केमति नेबी तेन तक मु कोन करबी मुझे नेबी देखिक नेबी ये भाग्यश्री आस नेबी कि संध्या आस नबी कि जयपाल आस कि भजा नेबी भावुँ ना देखी नेबी इट विल बी एन एरर बायस हो कारण एम डेली आसती तेणु डेली आसा फल मोर प्रति रोचे गोटे स्नेह रोचे तेणु गोटे बायस सृष्टि हो तेणु गोटे एमती 4 जन नेबी जो मान प्रकृति मोर बायस नमती नेबी तुम समस्त ना लिखिदेवी ये 20 जन ना लिखिदेवी लिखिदेकि तू 4टा मुझे उठेदेवी सफलिंग करदेवी 4टा उठेदेवी कारण मोर किसी रोल ना मु एक्सपेरिमेंटर मोर बायस किसी ना कारण मुझे उठाऊँ आखि बुझिकी 4टा रांडमली उठाऊँ ये जो 4 जन बछा हे रैंडम ये सैंपल तेणु सैंपल नौ गोटे पपुलेसन रु देख ये पपुलेसन किए ना 100 जन टोटाल नंबर ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स 100 है पपुलेसन आम सैंपल बाछुँ केमती सैंपल नब के 4 जन पाउच आवेलेबल के 20 तेणु 20 रु आम नबू 4 जन को बाय रैंडम सैंपलिंग तेणु आमर ये सैंपलिंग नौ आम आइडियली the sample corresponds to the larger population. Ideally, the sample should be having some characteristics of the population. So, in that case, the researcher should be very particular, very meticulous in choosing a sample. So, sample, according to definition, is miniature picture of the cross section of the entire group. Or the sample the name implies is a smaller representative of a large whole. The sampling has been done by looking into the size of the population. You can take a sample, a large sample, or you can take a small sample depending on the availability also. So now see the population from which you are taking, it could be finite or infinite. What is finite population? For example, the finite population is one whose size is limited and cannot count easily. For example, population of college teachers, ये गोटे कौन फिनाइट पॉपुलेशन. नाउ सी मुझे कहली 100 जन पिला पढ़ुंती तुम फर्स्ट ईयर रे. दिस 100 इज ए फिनाइट पॉपुलेशन because you can calculate, you can count, if you try you can get them. Suppose I will say you the fish in the river ए नई रे केते माछ अछंती तमे कह एटा कोन हबो एटा होची इनफिनाइट पॉपुलेशन कि तुमरा कहबो गोटे ए बळे गोटे गोटे कसे केते धान फळीची गणिक कहि परिबो केते गछ अछि हम नेचर रे कहि परिबो तो ये होची कोन ना इनफिनाइट पॉपुलेशन गोटेला फिनाइट पॉपुलेशन गोटेला इनफिनाइट पॉपुलेशन. अच्छा आमर जो सैंपल नौचु वी आर टेकिंग फ्रॉम द पॉपुलेशन एंड इट इज ए रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन. आम यही सैंपल कहूँ स्टैटिस्टिक्स. एनी मेजर ऑफ पॉपुलेशन गोटे होल पॉपुलेशन ए 100 जन पिलांकर जदि मु नेबी मीन एटा होची पॉपुलेशन मीन ताको कहू पैरामीटर. जी सैंपल 4 जन मीन देवी यहाँ पैरामीटर नुहे स्टैटिस्टिक्स. तेणु एनी वैल्यू रिगार्डिंग पॉपुलेशन इज कॉल्ड पैरामीटर एंड ए वैल्यू ऑन दिस सैंपल इज कॉल्ड ए स्टैटिस्टिक्स. आमर सैंपल नौचु केते सैंपल केते लोक नबा केते लोकर व्यू नबा एटा जो हम नौचु एटा को कहे जे साइज. योर साइज ऑफ सैंपल indicates the number of cases you have taken in the sample. So the n or the number of cases indicates the sample size. And the sample design, how can you design a sample in which you will take, how can you frame the sample? That is all very easy because you take a sample, you list the people and then take the make it up to date. Then you make register postcode like this. You frame the sample, take the sample, frame the sample. So now the question is important. Why do you take a sample? So the thing is, the objective of sampling is to derive the desired information about the population at the minimum cost and with maximum reliability. ତମେ ଯଦି ପୁରା ହୋଲ୍ ପପୁଲେସନ୍ କରିବ, it is a higher cost, very costly, time taking. ତମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ sample ନେଇ କରିବ, you are doing with a minimum cost. So here, when you are going to select a sample, you should take care how to make the sample representative. Our bias would see a bias in the selection of sample is actually making the sample defective. So now, while you choose the sample, you take care of the bias. And the bias of you see the researcher select a sample by a non-random method. Randomly no. You are choosing, there's a human choice, toma choice. मते भल लागला गोटे काकू मु ताकू भर्ती कर दी सैंपल दे मते भल लागला जयपाल को मु जयपाल रहिला इठी हमर सैंपल दे मते भल लागला भाग्यश्री की भाग्य तू रहिला शताब्दी तू रहिलो ए जो मु जो कहबी कि चारि जन को मते भल लागला जाकू भल लागला जो माने रेगुलर ताकू मु सैंपल भर्ती कर देबी त माने देयर इज अ ह्यूमन चॉइस गोटे बायस सेकंडली sometimes the researcher does not cover the sampling population accurately. For example, मुझे चार जन नेबी मु गोटे बायस तो मुझे चॉइस करबी मो देखी चॉइस तो कहती मो देखा चॉइस ह्यूमन चॉइस गोटे आ गोटे होची मु तांको प्रॉब्लम स्टडी करता होची मु देखिबी जे whether I cover the population accurately or not. मोर प्रॉब्लम होची तांकर मु तांको स्टडी करबी whether the igno people are cooperating or not. That's the topic. So now if they are coming, if they are reading, if they are interacting, then only they can say. तेणु मु बाछबी काकू ना जो माने आसुथिबे पढुथिबे जने घरे बसथिबे आसुथिबे जने एब्सेंट होथिबे से मानको बाछबाटा inaccurate. तेणु बाछला बेले sample we should see the population accurately or completely. Sometimes, thirdly, sometimes some cases, some individuals, they do not cooperate. When they call me, you give me your response. They do not cooperate. You give me your phone number. You don't cooperate. Or you are not coming. You are not having interaction. Then how can I inform you? Unless you give me. So now, if you don't cooperate, how can I take the sample? So sample now number one, he must be cooperating. Number two, he must be reflecting one characteristic of the population. Number three, see the population जहाँ पर स्टडी करूची मु सेटा को कंसर्न हेतिबो ए तीनटा को देखुथिबी सैंपलिंग कला बेले तेणु पर्पस सैंपलिंग होची मु जो बाछिबी गोटे रिप्रेजेंटेटिव पार्ट और बाछिबी से तीनटा को रिफ्लेक्ट करथिबो सी आमे जो मेथड रे सैंपलिंग करू सैंपल बाछु ताको एक्चुअली हमरो ब्लालक बोली जने लोक 1960 रे ताको जोडे कैटेगरी रे भर्ती कर देले कोटे होची नॉन प्रोबेबिलिटी सैंपलिंग मेथड आउट ऑफ प्रोबेबिलिटी सैंपलिंग मेथड नॉन प्रोबेबिलिटी मेथड इज वन where there is no way of assessing the probability of the element or a group element, or you can say the non-probability sampling provides no basis for estimating how closely the characteristic of sample approximates the parameters. ତେଣୁ ଏଇ ଯେଉଁ ନନ୍ ପ୍ରୋବାବିଲିଟି ସାମ୍ପଲିଂ ନେଉଛ ମେଥଡ଼ଟା ଆମେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ନନ୍ ପ୍ରୋବାବିଲିଟି ସାମ୍ପଲ୍ ମାନେ ସେଠି ରାଣ୍ଡମ୍ ସାମ୍ପଲିଂ ନାହିଁ, ସମସ୍ତେ ବଛା ହେଇଛନ୍ତି ୱିଦାଉଟ୍ ବାୟସ୍ କାରଣ ସେ ତେଣୁ ନନ୍ ପ୍ରୋବାବିଲିଟି ମାନେ no probability that the sample is reflecting the population or no probability that the sample adequately or properly representing the population. ତେଣୁ ନନ୍ ପ୍ରୋବାବିଲିଟି ସାମ୍ପଲିଂ ମେଥଡ଼ କିଏ ଆସୁଛି ଏଥିରେ ତୁମର ଆସୁଛି ପାଞ୍ଚଟା ଆସୁଛି ତୁମର ଟେକ୍ନିକ୍। ତେଣୁ ଏ ଯେଉଁ ନନ୍ ସାମ୍ପଲିଂ ବା ନନ୍ ପ୍ରୋବାବିଲିଟି ମେଥଡ଼ including 5 methods. Number 1, haphazard sampling. ଆମେ କହୁ haphazard, accidental or convenient sampling. When researcher haphazardly selects that are convenient to him or to which he can get easily, that is called haphazard sampling. ମୁଁ ନେବି ସମ୍ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଗୋଟେ ନେବି ଇଗ୍ନୋର ପଢ଼ିବା ପାଇଁ, ଇଗ୍ନୋର ଉପରେ କରିବା ପାଇଁ, ମୁଁ ତମେ ମତେ ଜାଣ ନେଇଯିବି ଯେଉଁମାନେ ମୋର ଘର ପାଖ ଲୋକ ବା ତାଙ୍କୁ ଚିହ୍ନିଛି ମୁଁ, ଏଇଟା haphazard. So the samples are cheap and quick, however erroneous. There is error. Suppose you are moving, you found some people on the street. स्ट्रीट देखा चार पाँच गोटे भ्यू नहीं गल रास्ता उपर कि टेलीविजन व्यूअर्स मान गोटे भ्यू नॉर्मल गोटे भ्यू नहीं गल तेणु तुम ये जो नेला बेले तुम जो मैंने टेलीविजन इंटरव्यू नियंती देखी बाछी बाछिकी सुंदर लोक पचार सुंदर स्त्री लोक सुंदर पुरुष लोक पचार भल स्मार्ट ड्रेस पचार तेणु ये सब कौन ये haphazard एटा सब से करते सब माने whether they it is convenient for them, they get them convenient on the road and they choose also. तेणु ये बायस सब तेणु ये haphazard अनकन्वीनियंस और एक्सीडेंटल बाटे क्या मिलगले बाटे जो मैंने पचारे तेणु एगुड़ा सब जो पचारती ये एक्सीडेंटल. सो हियर मैं टीचर गोटे पचार गोटे क्या जहाँ को पचारा क्या गोटे पचारा भल जी भल पाँच भल पचारा गोटे सो एक्सीडेंटल सो कन्वीनियंट ये सब haphazard. तेणु ये सैंपलिंग इज डिफेक्टिव सैंपलिंग. अनदर टेक्निक is quota sampling. So quota sampling is not appropriate method. Here the interviewer chooses who they like and may select therefore select those who are easiest to interview. तेणु इटी कौन हुए in haphazard sampling all those interviewed might be of the same age or same sex or background, but in quota sample what happens, they take persons from different sample, different category, from different age to kete, sex to kete, background to kete, all like nahi thi सब, and they take them, they choose them conveniently also. And here they are not using random technique, and therefore this sampling is also defective. In non-probability, they do not choose random technique, they do not take on random method. So से रास्ते ग्रुप sample नेले इतने जो माने गोटे ग्रुप रू एतिक लोक ने मंगल गोटे कोटारू एतिक आ गोटे कोटारू माने एतिक पुओ ने एतिक झील ने यहाँ मन इच्छा कर नहीं गले जहाँ देखिले जा नहीं गले ये गोटे कोटा गोटे ए गोटे गोटे एति पुओ ने एतिक झील ने एतिक ने क्वालिफाइड लोक एतिक ग्राजुएट एत अंडर ग्राजुएट एतिक कौन लिखी ने सब गोटे ग्रुप सब ये जो कोटार ने से माने दैट दे टेक आल्सो on convenient measure, that is quota sampling. ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ହେଲା purposive sampling. This sampling is a kind of sampling for a special situation. It is usually used in exploratory research or in field research. So suppose you are going to have a field research to examine a problem behavior. So here the researcher goes to the people to whom he thinks are informative. So and will be willing to share it. ତେଣୁ ଏଠି କ'ଣ ହୁଏ the judgment of the researcher as to who can provide the best information to achieve the objective of the study is important. Researcher ତା ନିଜ ଇଚ୍ଛାରେ ସେ କରିବ ତା purpose. So here for studying attitude, for example, toward a national issue, a sample of journalists, teacher and legislators may be taken as an example of purposive sampling because they can more reasonably be expected to represent the correct attitude than other class of people. For example, the researcher wants to make a study on national issue. ସେ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ନେବେନି, ସେ ଏଇଟା ପର୍ପସ୍ ସାମ୍ପଲିଂ ଏଇଥିପାଇଁ ସେ କେତେ ଜର୍ଣ୍ଣାଲିଷ୍ଟ ନେବେ, କେତେ ଟିଚର ନେବେ, କେତେ ରେଜିଷ୍ଟର ନେବେ, କହିବେ ଏମାନେ ନେଲେ ହେଇଗଲା, ଏଇ ଗୋଟେ ତାଙ୍କ ବାଛିବେ ମାନେ କନଭିନିଏଣ୍ଟଲି ଯେ ଆଭେଲେବୁଲ. So this is called purposive sampling. Now the purpose sampling is less costly, readily accessible, more convenient. Despite the advantage, there is no way to ensure that the sample is truly representing the population. The another technique is snowball sampling. The snowball sampling is called sociometric sampling. Suppose ମୁଁ ପଚାରିଲି ତମକୁ, ମୁଁ ଜାଣି ତମକୁ କେମିତି ଲାଗୁଛି ଇଗ୍ନୋରେ ପଢିଲେ, ଇଗ୍ନୋ ପିପୁଲ କେମିତି ବା ଇଗ୍ନୋ ତମକୁ ଭଲ କୋପରେଟ୍ କରୁଛି କି ନାହିଁ. I am asking the question. Suppose I went first to I went to Joypal. Joypal, how do you feel about IGNOU? Do you feel free? Are they all cooperative? ସେ ତାର ଦେଲା ରେସ୍ପନ୍ସ ଟିପିଲି. ବୋଲେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଗାନା କହିଲୁ, ସେ କହିଲା ପ୍ଲିଜ୍ ଗୋ ଟୁ ଶତାବ୍ଦୀ. I texted from Hotadi. I asked her, Hotadi ପଚାରିଲି, Hotadi ତୁ ଗୋଟେ ନା କହିଲୁ, ସେ କହିଲା ସାର୍ you can go to Banipriya. I went to her. She told you please go to Sandhya. I went to Sandhya. Then she told go to Bhagyasri. So now this way is called sociometric sampling. So here you do not take anybody directly. You go to somebody, she suggests somebody like this snowball sampling. So you move from this to this, and ultimately you get views, and everything is non-probability because you go to a person. I went to Joypal, and Joypal gave the name of a person who is close to him or convenient to him or whom he likes. I went to Shatabdi, she gave the name of a person to whom she likes. Like this. So here the personal choice is, or the human impression is counting. So it is not probability, non-probability. The next one is systematic sampling. So the name itself, systematic, indicates as if it is done perfectly, but not perfectly. So everything is done systematically. But here, if we pay attention to systematic sampling, it becomes obvious that this plan possesses some characteristics of randomness. Only thing, first element selected is a random one. And at the same time, possess some non-probability traits such as excluding all persons between every ninth element chosen. For example, here, you see here, suppose there are 20 persons coming to the class. I will 20 persons, I am going to take 4. So I will take a method that I took the first one, then the fifth one, then the 10th one, then the 15th one, then the 20th one. So now see, when I take these like past, 5th, 10th, 15th, 20th, like that. So when I take this number, I don't have any bias. I don't know the persons. I just made myself a rule, and little randomness is there. But still then, there is no probability that all the, the deserving people are included. Randomness is not ensured so much. But here, one thing, it is systematic in the sense, you take on a principle, first, 5th, 10th, 15th, 20th. So 4 cases are there. You can do that. So here it is called systematic. In the sense, we do little randomness in the beginning, but the number 1 you choose, number 5 you choose, you don't have any bias. You choose also randomly. But the thing is, by choosing 1, then 5th, then here the 2, 3, 4, they are neglected. They could have been better also. You are not giving justice to them. Therefore, this sampling is still a defective one. But all these techniques, non-cohort sampling techniques, as I discussed, they are very good to be used for quick research result, for less cost and less time. And these methods are very suitable. And now we come to the probability sampling. The probability sampling is, on the other hand, clearly specify the probability or likelihood of inclusion of each element, or you can inclusion of each individual in the sample. So now see, one is simple random sampling. In the simple random sampling, we require a complete list of all the elements, all the individuals. And secondly, we give them equal chance. And here, the selection process has no effect on the chance of selecting the individual. Suppose, now I'll do like this. You are 20 persons here. So 20 persons here, I will write 20 names, and from all these 20 names are supple, I will choose 4. So now you see, suppose in this 4, suppose in the 4, in my choosing 4, suppose I choose Satabdi. So Satabdi included sample doesn't mean then I did not like Sandhya or Manapriya or Bhagyasri or Jaipal. So this is by chance. The lottery system, like I took a piece of paper, I raised a piece of paper, and I got the name. So now this is simple random technique. So all these 5 persons are having equal chance, equal possibility. They could be included, but by lottery or randomness, only this name came. So this is simple random sampling, and this sampling is very advantageous. Group is a very error-free process. Each person has equal chance, and here also very much suitable. So if sample size increases, it becomes more repetitive also. Despite all the advantages, there are also some disadvantages. Also, the method is least costly, very accessible, very accurate. That is the advantage. But the disadvantage is a large sample size is required to establish the reliability. When there is geographical dispersion, it is difficult to get this. Unskilled and untrained investigator may cause also wrong results. Like this. So next we come to stratified random sampling. So the stratified random sampling, you divide population different strata. So stratification tends to increase the precision in estimating the attributes of the whole population. Stratification gives some convenience in sampling. When you divide the population to different units, a person or a group of person may be deputed to supervise the sampling survey in each unit. So the stratification on a sampling is one of the best way of sampling technique. For example, I am saying, suppose I am going to make a study on 4 persons like you people who are reading in IGNOU. So when I choose 4 persons, when I take simple random technique, if I take in a simple random method, then there is all possibility that all the 4 persons may be boys. I am taking the papers, lottery system. So all the 4 may be boys. So actually, when you talk about interaction with IGNOU people or IGNOU center, then the girls have a better say because they are having all the possibility of being neglected. They may not be getting proper support, proper help. So if we ignore the girl, then the result will be also questioned. Therefore, we want both the boys and girls to be represented. So we can better make it stratified. Stratified, how it is? You make like this. You just take 10 boys, 10 girls. Out of 10, 2 girls. Out of 10, 2 boys. So you do random technique, but first make them stratified. So the stratification or the grouping from which you are selecting will help you a better and proper representation. So this technique is very useful because the stratification increases the precision. The stratification gives some convenience. The stratification is more repetitive. It saves time. Despite the advantage, improper stratification may cause wrong results, and trained investigators are also required. The last sampling technique, which is so it is actually probability sampling. The last technique in probability sampling is cluster sampling. Cluster sampling. So a type of random sample that uses multiple stages and often used to cover wide geographic areas. That is called cluster. For example, the investigator wants to survey on some aspect of 3rd grade elementary school children. First random sample of number of states from the country would be selected. So there এই जो 3 ଜଣ ପିଲା এই जो 3rd grade ପିଲାଙ୍କୁ ତୁମେ ନବ elementary school ପିଲାଙ୍କୁ ତମେ ପ୍ରଥମେ ବାଛିବ ଯେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆରେ ଯେତିକି ଷ୍ଟେଟ୍ 30-31 ଷ୍ଟେଟ୍ ଅଛି ଏ ଷ୍ଟେଟ୍ରୁ କେଉଁ ଷ୍ଟେଟ୍ରେ ନବ randomly ଷ୍ଟେଟ୍କୁ ବାଛ ଆଗ. ନେକ୍ସଟ within each state randomly ବାଛ କେଉଁ district ନବ ପୁଣି district ଭିତରେ ବାଛ randomly କେଉଁ ସ୍କୁଲକୁ ନବ. ଫାଇନାଲି ଯେଉଁ ସ୍କୁଲ ନବ ସେ ସ୍କୁଲରୁ କେତେ ପିଲାଙ୍କୁ ନବ, how many from the school randomly. So each level you have to choose randomly. That is called cluster sampling. Suppose ମୁଁ ନେବି ତୁମର ଏଇ ସରି ଇଗ୍ନୋ ପିଲାଙ୍କ ଉପରେ ମୁଁ 20 ଜଣ ପିଲାଙ୍କୁ ନେବି. ନେଲା ବେଳେ ଭାବିବି ମୁଁ କୋଉ 20 ପିଲାଙ୍କୁ ନେବି. ଏ 20 ପିଲା ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରର ନା କଟକର ନା କୋରାପୁଟର ନା ଆଉଟସାଇଡ୍ ଓଡ଼ିଶା ପିଲାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ମୁଁ କାହାକୁ ନେବି. ତ ପ୍ରଥମେ ଫାର୍ଷ୍ଟ ଅଫ୍ ଅଲ୍ you decide whether outside Orissa or whether distant parts of Orissa or whether coastal part or central part of Orissa. That to decide randomly by lottery system. Suppose you got it that Koraput became the district. So from Koraput, there are so many places, so many centers, so many schools. Cow school nabo Takura Nal Matso. The school went to school, you are going to study on students, that students will randomly select also. So randomness continues in cluster. So that is cluster sampling. So you are taking people randomly in different stages. So like this, we have different methods in sampling. That is, one is non-probability sampling, other is probability sampling. So now the question is, are you all clear about that? I hope I have clearly delivered the views and hope you could have followed it. So any doubt? Any doubt? Can I go to the next one? Can I go to the next one?
Yes, sir.
Yes, good. So, Joypal, you are not saying?
Yes, sir. Understood, sir.
Good. कौन गाएंगी? तो जो ढूंढता क्या रही हो? अच्छा. Now I will go to a technique called survey technique. When you go into research, so we are conducting survey. So we are doing research in different ways. So one of the ways survey method, survey technique. So sometimes one of the most important areas of research in the field of applied social science is survey research. In the field of social science, we actually conduct survey research and basically use it for collecting data and also involves measurement procedures that include asking questions from respondents, and the term survey can be defined as a process which may involve examining or assessing in the form of short paper and pencil feedback. So here is a very convenient technique, and the method of survey is non-experimental. Is non-experimental means does not involve observation under controlled condition. The descriptive research, which is one of the quantitative method, it is a method, quantitative method. We have two methods, quantitative, qualitative. We have a quantitative method to study the large sample. In a survey research, the researcher collect data with the help of standardized questionnaires or interview. And here, the data through interview from the population is now analyzed. And the population, as you know, it refers to the universe, entire people, which can be defined as a collection of people having common characteristics. The method of survey research is a technique applied in social research, which is very helpful in collecting data, both through direct method, direct means face-to-face interview, and also indirect method, that is through opinion on library service of an institute. Through opinions, it can be opinion indirectly by taking opinion, or with face-to-face technique. Face-to-face direct and taking opinion in other ways or through other sources, that is indirect observation. So like this, survey involves different steps. The steps in conducting survey could be discussed like step 1, determine the aims and objective of the study. In the survey, what you have to do, what is your objective, that you first streamline, that you first outline. This is the aim, this is the objective. Then define the population you are making survey on whom you are taking, you define that, whether they are representing population or not, whether they are representing the universe or not, whether they contain the characteristics of the population or not. Thirdly, you make a design or construct how to construct a survey. So here you need to design a survey research and select the instrument for survey with which you will get data. After selecting the instrument, you can make a pilot study, a small survey which can lead to major investigation. The pilot study helps to analyze the significance and relevance of the instruments. तुम जो इंस्ट्रूमेंट यूज कर जो क्वेश्चन यूज कर सपोज तुम्हें कि टेलीफोनिक इंटरव्यू कर जो इंटरव्यू कर पायलट स्टडी कले देखियो जे प्रॉपर्ली से कहउछन नाही it properly reflecting the view or not. You can make a pilot study also. Yeah, you can design like that. Again, next you can select a representing sample. The sample should be taken in selective representative, means randomly taken, or you can take the sample from the target population, means the sample which nearly covers all the characteristics of the population, and you can administer a survey, then analyze and interpret the findings, then prepare the report, how many people you examine, what is their view, everything. I could detail the data analysis, the conclusion, you report that, then you communicate. Then the report is given to others' awareness, communication. So here, thereby we complete the survey. So now the instruments we use in survey research could be now discussed here. Predominantly, there are three major ways which can be used as an instrument in collecting data. Three major ways. Number one, sampling. The technique of sampling can itself act as an instrument in collecting data. For example, if the researcher wants to survey the job satisfaction among employees, then he can select the study, select and study the attitude upon at least 10 persons of each department of the organization. This means sampling. Suppose you are going to study the job satisfaction, then you just go to the organization. From each section, each department, 10 minimum you choose. So that is how you take the sample. Then only you can get the view. So sampling is very important. The next is questionnaire. Then what type of question you are preparing? And the question could be through mail survey, or could be group administered questionnaire. You can give the questionnaire to a group, or you can give the questionnaire to the household, house to house. You can collect their views either through interview or their question answers. So you can make the questionnaire either through mail or through group administration or through household. And next, you can use interview. It's kind of face-to-face interaction also. And through interview, you can ask them directly and give their opinion. The interview could be structured interview where you ask them to give answer, either yes or no. It could be unstructured interview where you do not ask them to give yes or no. You can ask them to tell whatever they're feeling. It's open, unstructured. And the next is telephonic view. You can ask them over phone directly. You can take telephonic interview. So interview could be these ways, either structured interview, unstructured interview, or telephone interview. Then now we come to the types of survey research. We made survey, but what type of survey you are doing? The survey research could be mainly two types. One is cross-sectional survey, means covering people of different types. Suppose you are going to make a survey, the survey could involve the people of all variety, all categories, all sections. So you do a survey at a stage on a group of people covering all the sections. And here, as I told you, when you are asking questions, that is open-ended questions, which is called qualitative question, qualitative one. And the first choice question, that is close-ended. As I told you in structured question system, that's an interview. That is a quantitative question. So you get their views either by open-ended question or by post choice method, that is qualitative or quantitative data you collect from them in the cross-sectional way. The other is longitudinal way. Longitudinal is time taking, so you prolong this for some months or years. So, for example, you are studying one developmental trend in one child. Again, you study it when he is adult. So now this study is covering how he is developing in childhood, in adulthood, like that. That is longitudinal. So here, an example of cross-sectional survey could be a study on the effect of socialization of children or different age group of a particular country. This type of survey is less time consuming and economical as well. So here we are going to involve persons of different age, sex, group, nation, tribe, and so on, everything. So that is something cross-sectional. A longitudinal survey, on the other hand, is used when the subject wants to study the same sample for a longer period of time. So this longitudinal study could be of three types. One is trend studies, the other is cohort studies, the third is panel studies. The trend studies indicates the longitudinal research where it may not be started as well ended by just one researcher or research project. So one may start the research, subsequently somebody else can do it. An example of trend study is this: maybe a yearly survey of number of graduates actively using books in library. The number of graduates or number of students reading books and journals in library over a year, that could be done by a researcher who started the survey, or in the middle, if not, that someone else also can substitute him, can continue the survey, and the survey continuing over a year, and then you can see the trend that the graduates are using books more or journal more or like that. So the trend could be indicated. And the other is cohort study. So here, a researcher could start a study on a group. Then he gave a time. After 6 months, again he made the study on the same group. or on another group, and you wanted to see the effect. The example I am giving also, suppose you are going to investigate the number of graduates of the year 2009 who have been actively using library. After 4 years, may examine the same issue of another sample of 2009, suppose, and same issue with another group of graduates, and you investigate whether the time gap of 4 years has increased the habit or not. That is cohort studies. The third is the panel study. In panel study, you use the same sample of people every time, and the sample is called panel. And the sample is studied again and again to investigate the change in attitudes, behavior. They are more specific and focused. And the researcher studies a particular change in their behavior. Now I can give an example. The researcher may study the library use among the graduate students and ask them questions related to their library frequency of library habits. Thereafter, the researcher may ask the same group similar questions and the reasons behind the change in their habit, if occurred. The study is difficult as it faces a greater trend of attrition rates in availability of the same people, because the same people may not be continuing. So, in the panel study, same people, they were asked something, their opinion taken. Again, after some same, they are again asked the same thing. So, the panel, they are the panel. So, in cohort, the same group will be replaced after a gap. In the panel, the same group is again and again asked. So, like this, we are getting these longitudinal studies in 3 ways: trend studies, cohort studies, panel studies. And here, when you construct a survey research, we follow some steps. We decide the content, scope, and objective of the question. We select the most convenient format of response. We decide how to frame the questions. We decide the format of the series of questions. And lastly also we decide the researcher to be very sensitive while preparing questions, should take the full care of moral values and ethics also, because the questions are something sensitizing their moral value or speaking on their moral concepts or contravening their ethical values. They may not give answer also, but the questions should be prepared accordingly. As I told you, the questions you are asking in interview, they are of 2 types, or asking in interview or survey, 2 types. There are structural questions and unstructured questions. The structural questions, as I told you, could be a type of choice, forced choice, like give yes or no. So like this, the structural question could be of 3 types, like dichotomous question, like level of measurement based question, like filtered question or continuous question. So the question asked will be of 3 types, like dichotomous. The question is said to be dichotomous if it has only 2 possible responses, like yes or no. You are asking question and the choice option is either yes or no. And the level of measurement based question could be involved in different level. So it could be involved in level, nominal level, like put your name, put your category, put your OBC or you belong to OBC or not OBC, you are general or not general, like this information, nominal. Or you can give ordinal. You are giving 3-4 names. You write who is the best one, who is the least one, or which is. I mean, you have to give the order in a series of 4 persons. You have to say which is the best one and which is the worst one. That is order. Here you give the level of measurement. Also, you can say like this: you agree, disagree, or strongly agree. Like this, you give the degree of choice. That is interval scale. This is also level of measurement. Or you can also have filter your measurement. I mean, filter your question. For example, suppose the researcher wants, it is called filter or continuous question. Suppose the researcher wants to ask whether the respondent has ever attended the library. If the researcher also wants to know how many times, if say yes, now how many times? Like this, the question will be like this. Question will be, have you ever attended the library? You say yes or no. If yes, then how many times? Once in a month or twice in a month or every week? Like this. So it's a filter. So ask one question, from that another question, from that another question. So you get the view in a filtered way. That is all structured questions. Then the next is unstructured question. Here you don't have any, you don't impose anything on them. So in this answer question, so you ask the question in an informal atmosphere. To get the information, the researcher takes full care to give a silent probe. He can verbally encourage, ask for clarification, but the answer will be given by the respondent in the interview, whatever he likes. So you cannot compel to give yes, no like that. So here the respondent is getting freedom in his response. So now you have some precautions in designing the instrument, I mean the questionnaire. Number one, the items of the questions, the items of the questions of the instrument should be clear, specific and relevant. Should be short also. Two, the respondents should also be capable to answer the questions. Three, the researcher should have empathy, should avoid those questions which are having negative impact, like moral and ethics, as I told you. And lastly, fourth, the researcher should also avoid any kind of bias, either towards the question or towards the respondent. So these are the precautions you have to take in designing the instruments. Now the question is, what are the advantages and disadvantages of software research? The software research has many advantages. It is convenient, less time taking, economical. Secondly, survey can be conducted for a longer period of time, so giving a chance of knowing about the latest things also. Thirdly, the researcher gets full chance to well organize and present the regions of the study. And fourthly, the method of survey lacks the following aspects. Number one, maintaining privacy of response of each respondent is also required. May also may restrict full and honest answers from them. If you don't take privacy, it may affect their proper response. High attrition rate of the respondents might hinder the longitudinal based studies also, because in the process many may discontinue. So now you see number one, regarding disadvantage, if you maintain the privacy, some of the respondents may question it. Why so much privacy? It must be open. So they may restrict full and honest answers also. So survey in some way may also be questioned for not getting the truth at times. So difficulties and issues of survey research. There are so many issues like bias issue, like instrument making issues, like administrative issues, or selecting the type of survey, that is also an issue. There's all these issues are there in survey research. What type of survey you are choosing, that's an issue. So what type of questionnaire you are choosing, that's an issue. Also the issue of bias or prejudice is an issue, and also the administrative issue. This means how you are managing this, how pre-planned, and how the research is advanced, that is an issue. So all these issues also there in survey technique. So survey is a good method, despite the little limitations. It's a very good technique to get the opinion or the voice of the respondents soon and also in a reliable manner. So now I come to the next chapter, the ex post facto, the other technique. So now let me ask you, so are you now clear about the survey technique? I told you about survey technique. Is clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good. You can ask me doubt also if you like. So next I go to the ex post facto research. So the research we are making are of different types. So the designs we are talking in design. The design could be ex post facto, or the design could be experimental design. So basically, when you talk of design or the form of research designs, then we can see that the designs could be of two types, prospective and retrospective. So when you are going to make a design to know the effect of something, it is a prospective design. Suppose you are going to give manure to see the result on the production. That is a prospective design. You want to do something in future. But when something is done, suppose you found that the number of student strength is decreasing. Many colleges are there having seats not filled up. So now this is a type of, so you are now going to find out the causes. Why? So here, this type of study is retrospective research. Going back to find out the causes. retrospective. So this research could be prospective and retrospective. So we can now come to the ex post facto research. So here this research helps us to predict the possible causes behind an effect that has already occurred. For example, the retrospective type. For example, I'm giving an example. If a child is delinquent, then we are trying to find out the basic reason behind the delinquency. So we can try to discuss various events that have occurred or the possibilities that have contributed to the delinquent behavior. Maybe the possibilities may be the lack of discipline in school, the lack of discipline in family, the lack of discipline in the neighborhood, or the peer effect, or other effect. Here the possible effects. That is called ex post facto. So something has been done. Now we are going to deal with that. So here in the study, the researcher predicts a cause on the basis of controlled effects. Because here you are not able to put the independent variable, or you can say that the independent variable and the other variables, external variables, they are all mixed up. So those factors are responsible. An ex post facto research can be defined as an empirically based investigation which doesn't involve researchers' direct control. So here in the research, the researcher's control over independent variable is not there because things have already been happened. And no scope for manipulating the independent variable. The term ex post facto refers to an experiment in which researcher, instead of finding a treatment, examines the effect of a naturally occurring treatment after it has occurred. In other words, it is a study that attempts to discover the pre-existing causal conditions between the groups. And it can be pointed out that the most serious danger of ex post facto research is the conclusion that because two factors go together, one is the cause and the other is effect. So here, for example, a thing happened like this, then with that, then again it's changing the next. So here, the independent variable, dependent variable, both are operating. And here, we, the researcher, have no control in manipulating independent variable. That's the danger in research. The characteristics of responsibility, what is the characteristics of research? Number one, research has no control or comparison group. So here you can't have any control or comparison group. No control to compare. Because you are getting a group, already the result has been established. Or changes are there. No control group. And the behavior, the behavior, the action, or the treatment, or the independent variable research cannot be manipulated or changed. So here you don't have no scope to do anything on the result. And thirdly, the research focuses on the effects, not on the cause. So how it has been done? What has been done? That is the analysis. The researcher tries to analyze how and what aspect of the event, how it developed, what developed or how developed, that's all. So here, this research, with this research, we try to explore the possible effects and causes, the cause-effect phenomenon. We try to explore, but we don't have any control on that. In experimental research, what happened? We have an independent variable, and we manipulate independent variable in controlled condition. But here, we don't have any control condition. We don't have any scope to manipulate. Something has happened, and you are now doing analysis post facto. Incident happened, so post facto analysis. So now, since there are two methods, like experimental method and ex post experimental research and ex post facto research, we can differentiate. What are the differences? Number one, in experimental research, the researcher has directly controls the independent variable and can manipulate to examine the effect of independent variable on dependent variable. We can manipulate. But in ex post facto research, he cannot directly manipulate the independent variable. So he can, as he sees or he predicts the cause on the basis of dependent variable. Because the dependent variable is the effect, and say the effect, this dependent variable becomes cause also. In the ex post facto research, there is no control condition, and the researcher has no role to manipulate. Secondly, in the experimental research, you take a sample, and the sample is randomly taken, and you control the sample and put them exposed to independent variable to the effect. In the ex post facto research, the researcher cannot use the principle of randomization, no scope randomization, no direct control over the cause. Only they infer the possibilities of the causes on the basis of the existing effect. When the cause is inferred in ex post facto, but the cause is clear in experimental research. And thirdly, the researcher can manipulate variables in experimental research, but cannot manipulate variables in ex post facto research. And fourthly, it is easier to interpret or infer relationship between the independent and dependent variable in experimental research, but difficult to interpret the relationship between independent and dependent variable. There can be more than one possibilities or cause for a particular effect. Thereby, on these four headings or four bases, we can find the experimental research and ex post facto research are completely different. And the question is, when you are going to indicate the causal relationship, that is the cause-effect relationship, or as you know, in experiments, we are always interested in finding out the causal relationship. So when you are going to infer or conclude the cause and effect relationship, we take care on three bases. Number one, associative variation. If Y is the result of X, when X varies, Y also varies, then you can conclude then X is the cause Y is the result. So now, due to associative variation, we can find the cause-effect relationship. And also, secondly, systematic order of events. For example, the consequent sequence or order, or if variable x causes y, then variable x must occur before or may occur simultaneously with the y and not after that. Then we say x is the cause. Systematic order. Either it's going with or before, not after. Then thirdly, absence of other causes. If we are thinking one is the cause, but there is absence of other causes, then you can say this is the cause. So these three, under the three issues, you can say the cause-effect relationship. So now I am coming to the steps involved in ex post facto research. Already we have discussed the steps involved in experimental research. I have told you in research writing the different steps. They are also repeated here. Number one, determine the problem. Number two, literature review, correct review. I mean the studies related to the particular problem. Number three, you make the hypothesis. Number four, you design the approach, how to do it. And here, you choose a sample and give them a scale or a questionnaire to collect data. So after you get the data, then you examine the validity of the research, whether the research is valid or not. Valid means, I told you earlier, whether it measures what it wants to measure. Actually, the problem related findings are there or not. Next, you come to interpretation of result and conclusion. And then you make the report writings. So when interpretation you are making, so you now analyze, evaluate, interpret the information, state the problem, and next the data, how they relate to the problem, how you collect data, all these things you mention in the report. So these things are there, different steps involved in ex post facto research. Now I am telling you about the strength and weakness of ex post facto research. The strength or advantage of this research, it is considered as a very relevant method in behavioral studies where the variables cannot be manipulated or altered. The example of the research could be sociological, like delinquency in childhood, adolescent delinquency, or about educational variables like achievements. It is more useful than experimental research as it can be used in analyzing a cause on basis of effect, which is impossible in experimental research. It's less time consuming. It gives the chance to researcher to analyze on the basis of personal opinions, then comes out with the best conclusion. There are also as well as so many weaknesses or limitations I discussed earlier. Here we don't manipulate independent variable. Researcher cannot randomly assign subjects. Researcher may not be able to provide reasonable explanation for the relationship of independent dependent variable. There are the limitations. But however, this is one of the very good tests nowadays used in behavioral studies. There is a concept of post hoc fallacy, that is means when you see the effect studying the because suppose you get the effects, and from the effect you are studying the causes. Then, so you can have the postdoc studies to examine different types of causes, or what are the possibility or the most possible links with the effects. That is postdoc fallacies. So, like this, we conclude the ex post facto research. So, am I clear? So, could you get idea about ex post facto research? It is as simple as a non-laboratory technique study, no necessary of no necessity of laboratory or field study. So here only you get the result. From that you are going to find out the cause and effect relationship. It is more useful than any question. I will come to the next topic, that is experimental research. Any question? No. So I come to the next study, that is experimental research. And the experimental research could be, as I told you, it could be in laboratory studies. It could be in field experiment also, in field natural settings. So in both experimental studies, we control the conditions, but in the field, it is a natural setup, no question of controlling. So now I can tell you the differences of the experimental research and field research. In the experimental research, the subjects are homogeneous. In the field research, the subjects they vary in number and not homogeneous. And in experimental research, too, the subjects are in control condition, but in field experiment, they are not in control condition. Suppose you are going to observe the animals in the zoo. That is field study. You have no control. And thirdly, the experimental group is taken and subjected to the manipulation of independent variable, and you see the effect of it on the subject in the experimental group. And here in the field experiment, two groups matched for certain basic characteristics. There may be so many confounding factors. At the end of the result of the two groups on a dependent variable are compared to see the effect of intervention. So the fourth one, the cause-effect relationship can be clearly established as in the laboratory experiment, because all extraneous factors are controlled, but here you cannot, because extraneous factors are not controlled as in the laboratory. Next, the predictions based on the experiment is more accurate, and here the predictions could not be that guaranteed. And sixth, the experiment is always quantitative in terms of results, and field experiments gives both qualitative and quantitative data. And seventh, the experiment in experimental research, the experiment is replicable, and the field experiments very difficult to be replicable. They are replicable, but may require modifications in terms of the matching factors. So like this, we get the experimental research, which is covering both laboratory studies and field studies. And here we can see that the field experiments are also called quasi-experiments, as researchers actively influence something to observe the consequences. The strengths and weaknesses of the field experiments. The field experiments is useful for behavioral and social studies. It is an appropriate method for studying complex social influences Third, it is the most suitable method to test the theory and for solution of practical problems. Fourthly, it is suited to testing broad hypotheses. And fifth, flexibility and applicability to a wide variety of problems are there in this method field study. There is some disadvantage also, limitation also. Here, there may be confounding variables like extraneous factors may operate. The findings may not be very genuine, maybe question. One of the problems of is the negative attitude of the teacher or researcher. The researcher may sometimes have a negative attitude, and the consent and cooperation of the subjects is a main factor. And here in field study is required for the field experiment. The type of research lacks precision. So how to construct a field experiment or field study? So number one, planning, how to plan it, where to do, what are the proper conditions will be there. Then sampling. So how to take the sample? So you can take the non-probable samples, the probability samples, here some form of random sampling. Non-probability sampling, do not use random sampling. But they are still unavailable. The probability sampling includes stratified, cluster, systematic, random sampling here. The non-probability sampling includes quota, purposive, accidental. So you take care of the sampling when you are including subjects. And the design, whatever design you are doing, take care of design. Fourthly, the tools, what type of tool you are using, or what statistical tool can be used. Then procedure, how we are going to conduct it. The statistical analysis. So after getting data, how to analyze this? So now we come to research design. Design is very important. How to plan it, how to structure the design, what is the strategy of investigation. All these things must be mentioned, included in your design. So the objectives of research design, the research design that you are going to use are having different objectives. Number one, to provide answers to research problem, research question. And number two, to control the variance under study. Means the result must be having less variance. Anyway, it is 11. So we'll continue or we'll stop it. In 9:30 to 11:30 or 11?
Sir, till 11:30. 9:30 to 11:30.
11:30, sir.
11:30. So continue. So here, the main concern. So now see, different principles are there. Principle 1, to maximize the variance of variable. Principle 2, to control the external variable. Principle 3, to minimize the error variance. So all these things are the objectives, because we have to see that we can minimize the error variance by two basic methods: the reduction of errors of measurement through control conditions and increase in the reliability of measures. So all these are there, the objectives of such design. So now let me discuss what the
Hello.
criteria. Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
sir, ମୁଁ
Yes.
କହୁଥିଲି
ହଁ
ଫର୍ମ ଫିଲଅପ ଟା ମୋର ହେଇପାରୁନଥିଲା ସାର୍ କହିଥିଲେ କାଲି କହିବା ପାଇଁ କ୍ଲାସ ରେ
କ'ଣ କରିବା
ଆଜି
ପାଇଁ?
ଲାଷ୍ଟ ଫର୍ମ ଫିଲଅପ ଟା ଆଜି ଲାଷ୍ଟ ଅଛି ଯେ ସେ ସାଇଡ ଓପନ ହଉନି ସାର୍ କହିଥିଲେ କାଲି କ୍ଲାସ ଟାଇମ ରେ କହିବ ମୁଁ କହିଦେବି କେମିତି କରିବା ପାଇଁ
ସିଏ ତମର 11:30 ଆସିବେ।
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ସିଏ ତ ଏଇ ନଥିବେ ନା, ମୁଁ ତ ଲିଙ୍କରେ ଥିଲେ ସେ କହିବେ ସିନା।
ଆଜ୍ଞା
11:30 ପଚାରିବ ହେଲା।
ଆଜ୍ଞା
What the criteria for a good research design? How the research design will be good design? So here the design will be considered good if the following questions are taken care of. Number one, whether the design gives specific answer to the research question. Number two, whether the design is adequately testing the hypothesis. Number three, whether the design is presenting the appropriate question or problem. Number four, whether the design adequately control the extraneous variables or the intervening variables. Number five, whether you can generalize the results to other subjects. If the result is very much not questionable, if the result is unquestionable, you can generalize. And lastly, does the design give the internal and external validity? This means whether the problem you have taken, whether design is linked with the problem, I mean the problem is clearly getting its clarification or answer through the design. That is the internal and external validity. So internally and externally the design is valid. So now we come to the types of experimental research designs. So one is single case experimental design. So here we are going to so better you can there are three cases: single case design, quasi experimental design, and experimental design. So the quasi experimental design, as I told you earlier also, it has limitations. Here researcher doesn't have full control over the assignment of units, and here the treatment conditions or the treatment cannot be manipulated. So it is called quasi-experimental design. There are various experimental situations in which the experimenter doesn't have full control. That is quasi-experimental. And in experimental design, third one, we have full control. The single case experiment is actually something different. That is used in behavioral modification. That is not in a group design, that is actually dealing with single case. The design is not very suitable. And here, repeated measurement is possible. So here, the design provides detailed information of the human behavior, which is not possible in the group designs. And this design is usually mainly used in clinical research. And therefore, and the quasi and experimental designs are group designs, group involvement. But single case design is a single case clinical research, like case history, we are taking one particular persons. So we are giving single case clinical methods. So now you see the experimental designs could be three types here: single case design or quasi-experimental design, where you do not have much control of the independent variable, we are not able to manipulate or control. We are not able to control the external factors or the intervening variables. But here in third experimental design, we are having full control, and the experimental design could be of different types, like between subject design, like within subject design, like mixed design, like classical pre-test post-test design, Solomon 4-group design, then factorial design. So so many designs. So between the designs, each subject is observed under one of the treatment conditions, or under now see each subject is observed, that is between subject design. In the treatment effect is now observed in individual cases, one by one. That is between subject design. So within subject design, each subject is observed under all the treatment conditions involved in the experiment. So the between subject is under one treatment, but within subject is in all treatments. And the mixed design is some factors are involved between subjects and some within subjects. So here the factors of both the types are also included. Next is classical pre-test design or post-test design. Here the total population of the participants is randomly divided in two samples, control sample and the experimental sample. Here the experimental sample is exposed to the manipulated variable. The researcher compares the pre-test results with the post-test results for both samples. Any divergence could be the result of the experiment. Classical pre-test is very commonly used in almost all studies. We are going to use this, very common. Then the next one is Solomon 4-group design. Here the sample is randomly divided into 4 groups. 2 groups are experimental samples and 2 groups experience no manipulation of experimental variables. So 2 groups receive a pre-test and a post-test exposure. 2 groups receive only post-test. 2 groups receive pre-test and post-test, both. This is an improvement over the classical design, which I told earlier. And the next one is factorial design. This is similar to the classical design, except additional samples are used. Each group is exposed to different experimental manipulation. So here, in the factorial design, so it's just like classical design, but one group extra is added here. So like this, we are having the designs, 6 types of designs we are using in experiment. And just to complete that, then you come to the next topic, that is case study. So case study, as I told you earlier, the individual design or single case study. So here in this case study, you can take the case of a person. We discussed earlier single subject research study, and the single subject research provides the statistical framework for making inferences from quantitative case data. The case study is a research approach and it is between the concrete data taking technique and methodological paradigm also. It is used in clinical psychology to examine the patient's previous history regarding the person's mental health. Actually, psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud, he emphasized on this method because this is very useful for clinical studies and guidance behavior, guiding behavior. Guidance counselors is useful. It is also useful to social worker. So for guidance to the individuals, to counselor, to social worker and other practitioners, this case history is very important. The case study approach is based on reality. Some of the studies have been conducted in the school environment, which mostly centered on behavioral problems of children. Observation, interview, psychological tests, and inventories have been used for collecting relevant data about the cases. However, subjective bias is a constant threat to objective data gathering. The researcher must be thoroughly familiar with the skills which are associated with the conduct of case studies. The case study is also very useful in psychology. It refers to descriptive research to obtain in-depth analysis of a person. The various techniques on personal interview, observation, psychometric test, archival records are included here. We can use the case study method in clinical psychology to describe rare events and conditions. Generally, case study is a single case design, but it can be a multiple case design where replication instead of sampling is the criteria for inclusion. One thing we must remember, the case study is that it must provide valid and reliable result for the development of future research. This means the case study should be done in such a way that it can give you future guidelines. The criteria for selection of a case study. So here, actually, we often use information sampling for the case study. Our cases are based on this only information, which is mostly based on extreme cases of typical cases. We don't go for everybody. We go for only typical cases. The average case is often not the richest in information. Extreme or typical case reveals more information because they activate more basic mechanisms. Random sampling indicating better effectiveness will seldom be able to produce this kind of insight. It is rather more appropriate to select a few cases for the validity. There are three types of information, or you can say three information-oriented cases that will be distinguished for the case study. One is critical cases you can take for case study, or extreme and deviant cases, or paradiagmatic cases. So these three cases can be included. The types of case studies. The types could be illustrative case study. The illustrative case study is primarily descriptive studies. They usually utilize one or two instances or event to show what a situation is like. It primarily helps you to make unfamiliar familiar and give readers a common language about the topic in question. Or it could be explorative or pilot case studies. This type of case study performed before implementing investigation. The basic function is to help identify questions and select types of measurement prior to the main investigation. But the pitfall of this type of study is that initial findings may seem convincing enough to be released prematurely as conclusion. Thirdly, there may be cumulative case studies also. This serve to aggregate information about the person from several sides, collected at different times also. The idea behind these studies is the collection of past studies will allow for greater generalization without additional cost or time. Next, critical instance case studies. These examine one or more study sites for either the purpose of examining a situation of unique interest with little to no interest in generality, or to call into question or challenge a highly generalized universal assertion. The method is useful for answering cause and effect questions and the critical instance case studies. Because in that state, case study becomes very, very useful, because that only gives you the cause and effect, or you are having this behavior, what is the cause, that can also be indicated. In case of the case studies, they are involving different steps. Number one, determine the present status of the case. Yes, before you take this case study, somebody may be a slow learner. You are going to take a case study. So now identify, determine the present status that is slow learner, then you are going to make all these things. So before you start this, here you determine the present status, that is physical examination of cases, psychological evaluation required also if required. So all these things to be taken into account to determine the present status. Next, identify the most probable antecedents of the case or cases. This information helps in formulating a workable hypothesis or a set of hypotheses. For example, in case of a slow learner, as you have taken in step 1, the researcher may formulate hypothesis that occurrence of slow learning behavior is due to unhealthy environment or bad study habit. Thirdly, verification of antecedents or hypothesis. For example, the behavior of slow learner. Here you try to check with the antecedents. It involves multi-method approach. Includes observation, past history, interview. The next step is diagnosis or remedial measures. And from this, after verification of the antecedents or hypothesis, the next step is directed towards the diagnosis of the causes. And after seeing this, we could suggest the remedial measures. What could be the remedial measures? How to change the behavior? Lastly, follow-up of the cases or cases. The last step of the case study is the follow-up case to study the impact of the remedial measure. If impact is positive, the diagnosis is taken to be correct. So there are all these steps involving case study. So first, determine the present status. Second, identify the probable antecedents. Third, verify the antecedents. Fourth, make diagnosis and remedial measures. And fifth, follow. If the remedial measures is working, you follow it up. You can say the diagnosis is good or correct. Now, what are the ways of case studies? The case studies could be, number one, writing analysis of case study. And second, it could be panel experts. Or here, a group of members, they actually either listen, and the panel experts, they could give a view, or a panel expert may read and give their view. And thirdly, we can make analyzing of similar case studies. We can see similar cases and give the conclusions. And also we can make cross conclusions, cross examinations. A cross examination, group members with questions prepared in advance, they will discover that it is necessary to do careful thinking and comparison before entering into case study. This cross examination technique is appropriate for use with cases containing great deal of details. There are many misconceptions about case study. Number one, generally theoretical knowledge is more valuable than concrete. Second, the case study is most useful for generating hypotheses. They are not true, misconceptions. Thirdly, this case study may affect the bias tendency, verification. All these are wrong. But there are some misconceptions. Therefore, while taking the case study reports, sometimes we feel that this may not be very useful. But actually, overruling these misconceptions, we can say that the case study gives ample information. It helps you in corrective measures and in clinical method or clinical trials. The case study is of ample use. Its role is very significant. So now we stop it. You are having your problem in some administration, as you were telling, to take admission or like that. So now you please go and take care of that. We will again meet in we will take at 12:30, right?
That's fine.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
12
sir.
p.m.
Thank you, sir.
Are you clear? I am also going hurriedly because I have to complete the course. If you are not, I told you, you give me, I will inform you in your phone if necessary to take a class again or to clarify in another class by requesting the authority. Whether I feel that the chapters are very difficult and by just hurriedly you cannot cover up everything. So I have tried maximum to make you aware of the facts. But still then, if you have any doubt, you can take also other classes or take classes again, extra classes to clarify. So we can talk. You can also talk to the people there if you need more classes. All right, we will meet at 12:30. Bye.
Okay, sir.
Sir, class will start from 12.
12.
Yes, sir.
12. All right, 12. All right.
Thank you.